Despite the bustling chaos of the dorm room, a symphony of clinking mugs, laughter, and the scattered rustling of papers, his presence held an unspoken calm that intrigued me. My roommate, Liam, perched casually on the edge of his bed, absorbed in a textbook with the sort of focused nonchalance only he could muster. In moments like these, his joking demeanor seemed a mask, barely concealing a depth I couldn't quite decipher. "Hey, bookworm," Liam called out in that teasing lilt, the corners of his lips curving up into a grin that could melt any awkwardness into something soft and hazy. I looked up from my own textbook, my cheeks warming with the sudden exposure of his attention. The room seemed to close in, like a stage being set. "Or something not yet fully realized," I replied, trying to match his easy playfulness. "No one holds a candle to your charm." Outside, the night pressed against the windows like a gentle conspirator, its darkness a canvas for our uncertain exchanges. Liam's posture relaxed, as if responding to some unspoken signal, his gaze lingering for a moment longer than usual. I imagined he didn't notice how the shadows softened his features, the way he poised himself like a magpie who'd stumbled upon something curious. "Compliments, huh? Will wonders never cease? Next you'll be telling me you're secretly plotting my downfall," he said, a laugh threading through his words. I shrugged, attempting to appear unfazed, but my heart betrayed me, skipping a beat in playful treason. "Would that be quite the conspiracy?" I countered, letting the laughter in my voice mirror his, "to overthrow the reigning king of the dorm room." His chuckle was a soft rumble, a delicate tie between us that pulled at something deep within me. I wondered if he saw through my feigned casualness, if he felt the subtle weight of the potential that hovered around us like an unsung melody. Liam had his fair share of admirers, his carefree allure an irresistible flame, drawing many into its orbit. But it was the gentle quirk of his lips and the understated glint in his eyes that kept me returning to this place of quiet longing. Liam stretched, arms above his head, his shirt lifting slightly off his waist, a tableau captured like an actor behind the curtain. "Maybe you're right to overthrow me," he mused. "But none of my enemies are as cute as you." His words unfurled a tenderness I tried desperately to contain, the stirring of hope, a whispered promise between the lines. There was a familiarity to our interactions, an ease that belied the complexity beneath. I ducked my head, focusing on the page before me, the lines swimming in the soft glow of the desk lamp, a pretended distraction from the thrum of emotions. "Anyway, I hear midnight snacks are the real key to maintaining my reign," he continued, pivoting effortlessly toward playfulness once again. "Want to join? We can raid the kitchen like true rebels of dorm mediocrity." My stomach fluttered, an odd sense of excitement tempered by the simple act of sharing such mundane rebellion. "Are you asking me on a night escapade?" I returned, infusing my words with a hint of mock scandal. "Asking?" He rose, a spirit of illumination amidst the shadows. "More like recruiting for the adventure. All insiders required. I hear enemies seldom decline a meal." I couldn't help but laugh, a sound that seemed out of place, yet perfectly suited to the atmosphere created by our hourly repartees. "Count me in, then. I'm not known for declining good company." As Liam packed away his books, I felt a shift in the gentle harmony between us. There was no radical upheaval, merely the artful reconstruction of lingering space, an unbroached closeness. The room, now quiet with our camaraderie, offered solace, the peaceful balm of night wrapping us both in its velvet embrace. This simple, earnest dance between us shaped. When Liam tossed me a conspiratorial glance, I didn't miss the shift in his gaze, the question there apparent to me alone, still unasked. Our silent path was an odd trail to tread, where body language whispered more than words, and where subtle glimmers of understanding played like shadow puppets across the wall of uncertainty. As we stepped out into the dim hallway, our shared endeavor beckoned, carrying the promise of clandestine companionship beneath the domed sky. This night might be just one small act in a larger script neither of us had yet imagined, but I savored the unspoken promises that lingered in the space between his easy steps and my cautious ones. Perhaps, within the theater of unsaid words and silent reciprocations, our interactions were creating a language uniquely ours. Or perhaps, like countless tales past, we danced near a precipice of discovery that would either fulfill or unmake the surreptitious longing poised in our hearts. Through the soft hum of fluorescent lights flickering above, shadows drew themselves across the dorm room's walls, sketching silent portraits of transient moments captured between us. The evening had folded around our modest retreat, but amidst the piles of books and shared laughs, an unspoken tension shimmered, suspended in the air, defying the quietude that morning would inevitably steal away. Liam, with an effortless magnetism, floated around the room, each gesture a natural play in this unintentional performance of two. He seemed bleach-bright in the low light, his presence a guiding star amidst the familiar chaos. I watched as he recounted tales of the day's mischief, laughter curling from his lips like smoke, the sound woven through the air like a melody, too intricate and beautiful. Or simply forget. "So you wouldn't believe what happened in the cafeteria," Liam began, his voice rich with the kind of dramatics that pulled at invisible strings within me. The tale of mashed potatoes and a banana peel sprawled across the linoleum spun a vibrant image, yet I found myself captivated by the animation behind his words more than the story itself. As Liam's eyes crinkled with amusement, the golden fringe of his eyelashes danced with every blink, a dance more delicate than any ballet. His allure was not commanded, it was an undercurrent, a ripple that both enchanted and disarmed. And as much as I tried to feign indifference, some unvoiced confession tugged at the corner of my consciousness, grazing against the likeness of desires I scarcely dared to entertain. "Listening?" His tone was playful, but tinged with a challenge, nudging me from spiraling thoughts. The warmth pooling beneath my collar betrayed me, each breath shallow, a quiet testament to the precariousness of my mystery. "Yeah, sounds like she didn't see that coming," I replied, mustering a grin. Yet my eyes communicated a different dialogue, yearning for an understanding that stretched beyond the realm of casual jest. How do you articulate an unscripted confession when every word feels like an intrusion into a realm still undefined by both? Liam's gaze lingered, probing, almost restless, as if seeking answers perhaps not yet fully formed in his own heart. His cavalier aura, a facade familiar to most, seemed suddenly fragile and questioned, impacting the busy thoughts spinning between us. As surely as a stone disturbs tranquil water. Nearby, the pale glow of a street lamp spilled through the window, painting tendrils of light that pooled across Liam's form as he settled into his bed. Absently, fingers combed through hair matted by the day's humidity. Each strand released a conspiracy hidden within, some hasty escape plan etched in casual motions. I watched, spellbound and suppressed, thoughts like stardust scattering over an empty abyss. "Do you ever wonder," he said suddenly, breaking the silence, "if we're just spinning in circles, orbiting around something we can't see?" Those words, dropped by him like seeds onto fertile ground, found their place, drawing from me a confession I did not yet have the courage to say aloud. Liam shifted, his posture reflecting the ease. The intensity of his quiet scrutiny rendered me vulnerable, my response suspended in the space between awkwardness and sincerity, uncertain if my heart may yet betray its softening pulse. Our gaze held, steady and searching, for a moment that seemed to stretch beyond reality, threading unseen connections through the silence like constellations mapping stories in the night. And still, the tongue-tied mystery loomed, a confrontation armed with implications neither of us had dared volunteer. Yet the quiet longing persisted, an enigma begging to be untangled. Well, maybe we should stop hiding from it, I suggested, timid in voice, yet emboldened by the flicker of something indefinable. Disguised as banter, that candid offering hovered, a challenge ring Liam to lift the veil and reveal what lay beneath. Liam chuckled, a sound wrapped in a cloak of secrets shared yet unvoiced. Maybe, he mused, the cadence of his laughter hinting at truths I hadn't yet heard. Or maybe we should just pretend, as if we're not already drawn to those questions and what they could mean. Unspoken agreements formed that evening, lingering in the space where dreams often take root, embracing an unpredictable path forged beneath uncertain stars. And as shadows settled for the night, the dance between us carried on, solidifying with each stolen glance and muffled sigh, our hearts composing a symphony of silent longing and unanswered questions. Perhaps beneath this night's dark canvas, reflection bred intimacy, or perhaps the stage was being set for a play neither of us anticipated. In those quiet moments where silence held sway, the tension, potent and fragile, promised a reckoning, a discovery yet unraveled, which would test our bonds or secure them under velvet skies. Like a flicker against the dark uncertainty, Liam's chest rose and fell with measured breaths, bridging distances still untraveled, and as the night wore on, my heart plodded its slow, steady course, cautious yet achingly aware of the unyielding pull of what may come when the dance found its voice at last. Under the glow of our dorm room's fluorescent light, I watched Liam's fingers dance across the pages of his notebook, each stroke of the pen more mesmerizing than the last. His brow furrowed in concentration, the semblance of thought carving gentle furrows in his skin. There was something inexplicably captivating about the way he existed, unassuming, yet cloaked in an allure that drew you in as effortlessly as gravity pulls at the world. These subtleties I noted, concealed behind the pretenses of casual inquiry and friendly banter. From my vantage point on the well-worn couch, I often wondered what it would be like to unravel those layers, like decrypting an enigmatic text that hinted at some conspiracy. My thoughts were a calculus of idle contemplation and surreptitious longing, an equation on where each glance was a variable, each shared silence a constant. In that space between consciousness and careless dreams, I found myself constructing feverish plots of revenge against the very distance that kept us contained within our own solitary orbits. This might sound crazy, he said suddenly, interrupting the fervent dialogue in my mind, but have you ever heard about those studies on how people are more likely to fall in love if they stare into each other's eyes for long enough? I raised an eyebrow, feigning nonchalance, as my heart performed acrobatics beneath my ribcage. You're telling me the entire concept of love is one long, unbroken staring contest? Liam's laughter was a warm breeze through the sterile room, a carefree sound that lingered like a melody. If only it meant was that simple, he mused, still grinning. And there it was again, the familiar playfulness in his voice, laden with undertones I couldn't quite decipher. Our conversation veered to other trivialities, skirting around deeper territory as if avoiding fragile ice. Somewhere amid this verbal dance, I found myself voicing admiration for a friend, a passingly careless remark about their resilience or charm, an offhand comment caught in the riptide of our usual exchanges. But as the words escaped, I noted a subtle shift in him, like the sky darkening before a storm. His posture stiffened ever so slightly, the notebook forgotten in his lap as the room's air grew denser, weighted down by an unseen force. His eyes flickered briefly in my direction, then away, the ethereal mask of his confidence, a moment briefly cracking like the surface tension on a pond disturbed by a pebble. In that momentary lapse, my own heart stumbled upon a realization that laced through me like an electrical current. Jealousy, a word I'd never thought to associate with Liam, etched itself across his features, just a quick flicker of something raw and unguarded before he regrouped. "Ah, I didn't know you were familiar with such exceptional characters," he quipped, a faint edge to his words that mirrored a pivot in our easy rhythm. Suddenly, the air between us felt charged with an intensity we had both avoided acknowledging. My insides tightened, a tumult of confusion and possibilities swirling around and spilling over any defenses I might have erected against this new revelation. Could I have unwittingly stirred something in him? Something more tempestuous than his usual playful facade? I shifted, inspecting Liam under this new light, as one might consider an artwork from a fresh perspective, searching for hidden meanings within familiar strokes. My own face betrayed nothing, that practiced neutrality at odds with the turbulent sea just beneath my skin. The notion that his quiet charm had begun to infiltrate my defenses, leaving a blaze in its wake, was as unsettling as it was thrilling. Our dialogue lapsed, the room filled with an expectant silence that hung like the tide poised to rush in. Muffled sounds from the hallway, the distant chatter of fellow students, the scuffle of feet, barely penetrated the poignant bubble encasing us. My mind raced ahead, weaving stories of what this might mean to us, calculating outcomes like some grand theory waiting to be proven or debunked. "Maybe we should all meet up sometime," I suggested, clinging to any thought that might break this newfound tension. Yet the attempt was clumsy, a hastily applied bandage over a wound I hadn't intended to expose. Liam nodded absently, the corners of his mouth quirking up, but it was a gesture laced with something else, a vulnerability I had never before seen. The silent misunderstanding between us deepened, like a rift only visible once you've stepped too close. He closed his notebook with unnecessary precision, the tiny click of metal against cardboard a signal, a punctuation mark deftly inserted at the end of our unscripted scene. I realized, with a pang of something bittersweet, that the balance of our playful camaraderie had shifted. I could no longer pretend to ignore the internal tilt of our world, nor the tender yearning that lingered like a color, never fully seen but always felt. The bond between us had transformed in that silence, a fragile construct of longing, constructed under this roof, yet shrouded in misunderstanding. Perhaps this was the beginning of a reckoning, a murmur of the heart that demanded attention, while each glance, each word became loaded with unspoken meaning. And beneath the poised calm of our everyday lives, I understood that we were both inexplicably, inextricably ensnared in the dance of drawbacks, misunderstandings, and the slow awakening of something wonderfully, terrifyingly new. The room was dimly lit, the soft glow from the vintage lamp casting long shadows that danced across the walls, mirroring the quiet turmoil in our minds. Outside, the world seemed oblivious to the storm brewing within these four walls, the rustling leaves whispering secrets of the night that would never touch our ears. But inside, the atmosphere was charged, an electric tension that seemed to vibrate in time with the quickened beats of my heart. Liam sat across the room, the flicker of light catching his eyes with an intensity that made breathing feel like a conscious effort. The silence pressed between us, thick with unspoken words and the heavy weight of our unacknowledged feelings. I watched him closely, trying to decipher the calculus of his intentions, a puzzle of gazes and half-formed sentences that stretched like an intricate conspiracy across the space between us. The ticking clock on the wall marked each moment with loud precision, and for a bizarre instant, I imagined it was a countdown, a timer to our inevitable confrontation, a winding mechanism that hid the truth beneath its gears. Liam's body was taut, like the string of a bow drawn just shy of release, and as he leaned forward, the shadows seemed to deepen, etching the worry onto his face with a subtle yet undeniable clarity. "I heard you the other day." His voice was quiet, but there was a hard edge beneath the softness, a tone laced with something fraught and delicate, yet unyielding. He didn't trust the silence, nor did I. "You heard what?" I replied, the nerves coloring my voice, my gaze flicking to the window as if seeking an escape in the cool darkness outside. The air felt stifling here. "The way you talked about that girl," he continued, his words like darts aimed with uncertain precision. I could feel every barb, the prickle of accusation lurking beneath the surface of his calm. "Did you mean that? Are you into her?" My stomach clenched involuntarily, and I tasted something akin to betrayal in the back of my throat, although neither of us had laid any claim to those deep, hidden corners of emotion. But the words he spoke cut in ways they shouldn't, exposing a vulnerability that felt as vital as it did unwelcome. "No." The confession slipped out in a whisper, quieter than the rustle of the leaves outside. Yet it reverberated within, shaking the foundations of carefully held facades. His gaze locked onto mine, and for a heartbeat I thought he understood, the truth swimming beneath the surface like light catching on the water. The odd piece of information that had once been my safe harbor turned into a beacon, suddenly illuminating the breadth of feelings I'd tried to hide. I never imagined being the protagonist in this peculiar dance, where actions and emotions were not performed but merely felt, an edgy stage where our audience consisted only of ourselves. Liam's expression softened, layered with something like relief, tinged with incredulous joy, and for a moment we were suspended in the understanding that came from daring to peek beneath the veneer of platonic camaraderie. There was a dreamy surrender in his eyes now, an ocean of tenderness threatening. "Damn it, I thought I was going to lose you," he whispered, the words raw and aching, crumbling the safety of his playboy facade brick by brick. His vulnerability stood bare, a silent testament that pulsed between us, shifting the emotional landscape as effectively as tectonic plates beneath a city. In the pause that followed, we were lost, navigating the tenderness unearthed, the choices that lay on the horizon clear but terrifying in their simplicity. It was a moment bred from misunderstood feelings and longing confessions, where certainty grew from shared shadows and private shores. "I was jealous," he admitted, his voice trembling lightly, naked in its truth. "It was stupid, but I couldn't stand the thought of someone else taking you away." And there it was, a revelation as simple as the shared breath now coursing through this fragile night. "I've been meaning to tell you," I stammered, searching for words that could convey the complexity of us, the tides of affection that ebbed and flowed within me all along. "Liam, you're the one I've always been looking at." As the air hung heavy with this admission, the tension didn't disappear. Instead, it transformed, evolving into an intimacy that promised depth and sincerity. The walls keeping us apart crumbled with the quiet assurance of gravity, inevitable in their descent. The turning point was here, cast in skin and shadows, where the gap between us closed with silent resonance to the possibility laid bare. Together, the cloak of misunderstanding swept away, leaving us trembling, ending in the shared dawn of something wholly new, yet blessedly ours. The rooftop lay quiet under a sky strewn with stars, tranquil yet inexplicably infinite, a velvet expanse that seemed to stretch beyond the boundaries of earthbound perception. Crisp air nipped at skin not sheltered by fleece or flannel, offering a gentle reminder of the world beyond our heated breaths and swelling hearts. As I stood there, the distant hum of campus life murmuring below us, my gaze wandered and fell upon Liam, standing beside me, toes curiously balancing at the edge, as if gravity held no dominion over him. The term playboy dared to cross my mind then, for there he was, the enigmatic Casanova, whose presence was as relentless as the deep pull of the midnight tides. But here, in this moment, beneath the silent constellation's watch, his usual languid charm dissolved into something far graver, rooted in the tenuous beauty of confession, hinted but not yet spoken. Our eyes met, and I could swear the cosmos itself paused, inhaled deeply as if waiting with hushed anticipation. There was a flicker of uncertainty there, taunting our lungs and resting heavy upon his brow. It was an expression I rarely deciphered on him, Liam, whose facade rarely cracked under the pressures of intrigue or complication, yet tonight spoke volumes in the silence. "This is a bit of a cliché, isn't it?" he said finally, his words dripping with that familiar sarcasm cloaked in almost wistful allure. "You, me, and the stars." There it was, the odd piece of information that lent a curious humanity to his bravado. The universe, after all, harbored few secrets from those willing to look close in. Enough. Yet we were not victims of cliched sentimentality, but active participants greeting a horizon of uncharted intimacy. A sardonic chuckle threatened to escape me, a conspiracy forming in the recesses of my mind to unravel whatever shielded his heart. Yet I held fast, the stakes of intrusion too high beneath the delicate sway of night's embrace. "That sounds as true as the existence of mermaids," I replied, my tone gentle but edged with a playful skepticism that had become our language. His smile faltered slightly, an emotive calculation in progress, as though he hesitated, unsure whether to revere or dismiss the vulnerability begging entry. Was it regret that danced across his features, or was it simply the revenge of unsaid words eulogizing the scope between fear and hope? "You not," Liam started, his voice now a measured whisper breaking the spell that distance had sown between us. "Not everything is a fairy tale. Even realities have their controversies." The comment hung between us, a delicate schism suggesting discourse over bedtime stories or dreams too immense to contain. A breath escaped my lungs, nearly visible in the crisp atmosphere, carrying the silent affirmation that these realities, however daunting, were ours to weave together in moonlit refuge. "I might be right here, but sometimes I think you're looking far beyond," I stated, seeking warmth in sincerity beneath the cloak of celestial observers, and found satisfaction in the softness of his resignation. Perhaps reality means staying in the moment. Liam's eyes went wide, luminous beneath his mead, tissy curls framing features forged in patience. He stepped closer, his movement reluctant yet inevitable, as though the world itself conspired to dissolve the invisible line carved by misunderstanding, revealing nothing but the promise of truth. Emotions surged like an arterial heartbeat, voluminous and unfathomable, our confessions held buoyant in suspense and anchoring within shared breath. "I didn't mean to complicate things," he admitted, each word slower, as though confessing to the stars themselves, more weighty than any earthbound exchange. "But I can't pretend anymore." For once, my hesitation dissipated in the clarity of this admission that mirrored my own. Our hearts sought refuge in glances, and wishes nurtured in silence but whispered imperceptibly, each beat holding more tenderness than had ever graced the earth formerly. Our fingers brushed as if by chance, a mere accident amidst an intentional universe, yet the searing had begun, not simply because of longing, but the realization this was no ephemeral mirage to evade. Here, under the auspicious moonlight, our realities collided, unadulterated and unshackled. "I've been looking at you too," I confessed in response, my voice drawn out by the gravity promising time suspended in mutuality. In this exchange lay disillusion, the rain of misunderstanding falling to ruins, paving pathways for truths shared without vow or apology. Liam's hand found its way to mine, fingers weaving together not out of necessity but of desire shared. Together, we watched constellations dance across the translucent speckle above, knowing that the weight between us had lifted, the air now ripe with possibilities, the kind that were at long last truly ours. The quiet rhythm of our heartbeats seemed to synchronize in the stillness of the rooftop, weaving a tapestry of shared understanding. It was as if the universe had paused, allowing us to rewrite our stories in the glowing ink of the moon. Each word, each caress of gaze, forging a chapter that was ours alone. The air, cool and crisp, wrapped around us like an old sweater, worn yet comforting, whispering affirmations of change, a gentle rebellion against the former patterns that had kept us apart. Liam leaned against the railing, his silhouette cutting through the layers of night that cloaked the city. His eyes, softening in the moonlight's embrace, held a promise, a silent pledge to be present, unguarded, in this newfound intimacy. There was a conspiratorial charm to his smile now, as if the stars had whispered secrets meant for our hearts alone. As I watched him, every playful jest he'd ever tossed my way seemed redefined, seasoned with the sincerity of a soul laid bare. "So, is this where we finally stop pretending?" His voice was a melody, an echoing chord that seemed to vibrate within the chambers of my chest. I gave a gentle laugh, the sound mingling with the distant hum of traffic below, life moving on, yet somehow momentarily forgetting us in its rush. "I think so. I mean, unless you have a better plan involving tinfoil hats and a government conspiracy to keep us apart." He chuckled, a sound that was both familiar and newly precious, like discovering an old song with a forgotten lyric that suddenly makes sense. "You might be onto something. Maybe they just wanted all the good rooftop spots." Every quip, every traded glance felt like an answer, a piecing together of fragments that had been scattered across hidden corners of our days. There was no grand crescendo, no vehement declarations, just the simplicity of unburdened truth. It was healing, like tracing old scars not to find the pain, but to appreciate the strength they marked. Liam's fingers now idly brushed mine, the contact igniting warmth in the autumn chill. "I think I underestimated you," he mused softly, his tone woven with affection and a hint of mischief. I raised a brow, feigning mild offense. "Underestimated? Should I start making revenge plans now? Maybe with a list of daring escapades to win rooftop proprietorship?" "I'll take whatever dare you throw my way," he promised. Eyes twinkled. His bravery in this was endearing, an invitation to challenge, to tease, to build something unrestrained by the chains of pretended indifference. We laughed, yes, but in the rhythms between silence and speech, doubts quietly dissipated, leaving only an honesty profound enough to soften our guarded edges. The rooftop, an incidental witness, seemed to remember us as we would now, a symbiotic dance of words, possibilities born from feeling laid bare to the night sky. There were no meticulously rehearsed confessions, only the simple truths shared in soft whispers, an oath cured in gentle understanding. Liam's voice turned hushed, a little introspective, as he said, "I've always kept people at arm's length, you know. It was easier. So I should warn you, I don't think I know how to do this, but I want to figure it out." The vulnerability in his voice mirrored the fractures in my own defense mechanisms, aligning comfortingly beside scars I'd converted into armor. I nodded, offering him the genuine softness of my gaze as beacons in his uncertainty. I've been afraid to let people in too, afraid I wouldn't measure up. But this is different. My fingers entwined more securely with his, adding weight to words that dared to be spoken. Some mysteries bound by understanding didn't need unraveling, just acceptance, much like accepting that we were 2 points on a star map not meant to remain distant. Each gesture, from our quiet banter to the hesitant touch, signaled the peeling away of all inadequacies, revealing depths uncharted by our former selves. Our breaths mingled with the night's silence, tokens of trust shared and grown. We were adventurers, navigating feelings both wonderful and terrifying, aware of but undeterred by the raw vulnerability love required. In his presence, I felt less like a shy statistic and more like a co-conspirator in something beautifully complicated. He gave me courage in his touch, and I reciprocated in mine, the kind that promised our fears would hush when faced as one. For the first time, words felt inadequate, constrained by their own definitions. Perhaps they weren't needed. Perhaps rooftops, moonlight, and the quiet strength in our joined hands spoke volumes, loud enough to be heard. In the delicate fragility of our newfound closeness, I glimpsed a beginning, a symphony waiting for an encore, nurtured by patience and time. Liam shifted closer, now a shade more assured under the protective cloak of the night. No words marked its significance, yet the closeness acknowledged all that lay beneath the surface tension of intentions and dreams. His warmth was a conspiracy shared with the cosmos, revealed in the glint of stars and the steady backdrop of neon life below. And so, beneath the celestial tapestry, unburdened by whispering shadows, we began to truly understand what it meant to feel found.